أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
طيب بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, we finished the last two chapters inshallah azza wa jal with that which is related to marriage. We've done alhamdulillah the marriage itself, the conditions of marriage, the guardian in marriage, the people that you're not allowed to marry, how to be with your spouse in marriage, some of the etiquettes. We went through divorce, the different types of divorces, some of the issues that may occur, like certain wordings used, like you are like my mother's back and the like. And we finalize with Nafaqatul Aqarib, the maintenance, financial maintenance that a person needs to provide to those who he is related to. Here specifically the family members, like a person's children, even though we'll speak a little bit broader than that. And also Babul Waleemah, the wedding feast. And just on that, we have went through almost 200 pages. Obviously we haven't read through all of the commentary, etc. We have gone through almost 200 pages from when we started and to where we are now. And this is alhamdulillah, just like other things that we go through. You get through a lot as long as you're consistent, even though it's only once a week. Allahumma barik, we do get through a lot of information. And this is something that you may not recall every single lesson off the top of your head, but it sits in the back of your mind. So if you do have a conversation with someone about many of these topics, you'll find that, subhanAllah, you are able to recall it quite easily. And if you don't recall it 100%, at least you know that you've gone over it and you can say that's correct or that's not correct, or I have gone through this before, let me go over my notes. Now, or you know where to find it or how to ask about it, etc. So this is something, it's a great achievement, but it's also something motivational for every single one of us to be more encouraged to read in general. If you to read 5 pages a day, 5 pages a day, you'll finish off a 500-page book in less than half a year. And that's only 5 pages a day. Imagine if you were to read 10 pages a day of a book. Now I'm 15 pages a day. And it doesn't take you that long. Okay, have time for your Quran, have time for your general reading, have time for your exercise, have time for your family. If you can structure your day on a good, suitable timetable that works for yourself, even if it's something small, you find yourself, alhamdulillah, able to read a lot and accomplish a lot. There are some of the ulama that they are known that they do not read less than 6 hours a day. Doesn't matter what's going on in their life. They don't read less than 6 hours a day. Some will not read less than 10 hours a day. Now, obviously, these are much higher levels to achieve. But, nevertheless, you can achieve something. As they say, مَا لَا يُدْرَكْ كُلُّهُ لَا يُتْرَكْ جُلُّهُ. That which is not achieved in its totality is not left altogether either. Okay, you don't leave out the majority of the benefit. Yes, you can't read 6 hours a day or 10 hours a day, but you can still read even half an hour a day. Or start off with 15 minutes a day. Pick a topic, pick a book that you like, that you enjoy, you enjoy that genre or that topic, you get it, you're interested in it, you read 15 minutes a day. Then you find half an hour a day. The thing with reading is it requires a little bit of effort, but you feel satisfied at the end of it. As opposed to sitting on your phone, which you could do for 2-3 hours easily, and at the end of it you feel very empty. Like, what did I just waste my time on? Now, so when you read, this brings about fulfillment and enjoyment and satisfaction, and it is something quite simple. Now, something quite simple to do, especially when you build yourself to it. As the ulama say, it's like a muscle. Reading is like a muscle. If you go to the gym now and you want to do bicep curls, you're not going to start with 50 kilo dumbbells. You're going to start with something small, maybe 10 kilos. Then you move up to 12 and a half, and you move up to 15, and then 20, and then you 25, and you continue to increase. But it takes time for you to be able to build that stamina. Similarly with reading, you start off something small, something light, something enjoyable, and then you work your way up to that which is even more complex, and you still enjoy it. Now, because you've gotten yourself used to it. He says, rahimahullah, باب نفقة الأقارب والمماليك, the chapter on maintenance of relatives and slaves. وعلى الإنسان نفقة والديه وإن علوا وأولاده وإن سفلوا ومن يرثه بفرض أو تعصيب إذا كانوا فقراء وله ما ينفق عليهم. It is mandatory. Okay, this is a mustalah shari'i. When a person says in English mandatory, okay, this now it becomes a obligation. So it is an obligation, meaning if you do it, you get rewarded. If you leave it, you are sinful. Okay, And in the Arabic, you will find that وَعَلَى الْإِنسَانِ عَلَى فُلَانَ أَنْ يَفْعَلْ كَذا. He has to do this. Okay? The mustalahat shar'iyya, the Islamic terminologies are something which we need to understand that they are carefully used. Sometimes a person may say, وَعَلَى فُلَانَ أَنْ يَفْعَلْ كَذا. It is upon a person to do this. And they mean by it an obligation. Or they mean by it, it is encouraged. How would you know? Through the context. And the more you learn, the more you'll be able to differentiate when it's an obligation and when it's recommended. Here, it's talking about an obligation. It is mandatory to spend on one's parents, his grandparents, and however many generations up. Yani his father, his grandfather, great-grandfather, etc. And his children and their descendants, how many generations down? So his children, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the like. And those from whom he inherits, whether it is from designated shares, fard, or residuaries, ta'asib. This is the case when they are poor and one has money to spend on them. So it is a direct obligation upon you as an individual to look after those who are from your parents and up, grandparents and the like, and your children and down. If they are poor and you are able to look after them. This is something important. Why? Because a lot of people, they miss these last two conditions. They miss these last two conditions if they are poor and if you are able. And we'll explain what both mean, inshallah azza wa jal, when we get to it. A lot of the time, the parents and the grandparents, they take the same rulings. Okay, the parents and the grandparents and up, and the children and down, they take the same rulings, like in marriage. You can't marry your parents, no matter how many generations they go up. Now, you can't marry your children, no matter how many generations they go down. When you get married, your wife becomes mahram to your parents, no matter how many generations up. She can't marry your children, no matter how many generations down. Now, even if they become stepmothers to those children, step grandchildren, etc., they can't get married to them. Jayyid? So many of the time they share the exact same rulings. And from those who inherit, there is some difference of opinion as to who you need to look after regarding the people other than your direct parents and up and your direct children and down. How far does it go out? That's why when they say aqarib here, aqarib is a very broad word. When you say relatives, this is a very broad word. Here it's talking about those who you will inherit from. Those who you will inherit from. So just like if they were to pass away, you inherit from them, you now have to reciprocate their goodness. That if they are in need of your assistance, you also assist them when they're alive. And this is common also, this reciprocating assistance is common when we speak about the diya. The blood money, if someone was to kill someone by accident, they have to pay the blood money or the person can forgive them. Who assists the person if they killed someone by accident? His family who would inherit from him, they assist that person. Okay, so they all assist one another. So inheritance is not just one way. Inheritance, when a person passes away, people will inherit from them. But if they are in need, then those people also need to assist them. The goodness works both ways. So here it says, those who are your parents and up or children are down, and also those who you will inherit from. Those who you will inherit from. This is the Hanbali madhab. Some of the other madhahib that are making an obligation. Okay? So there is some difference of opinion. In general, like when we get to the end, if you are able and they are poor, then assist for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal either way. Tayyib. Fard and ta'asib. What's fard and ta'asib when it comes to inheritance? Who knows? One is, how do they translate it? Designated shares, and one is residual. Anyone know the difference between fard and ta'asib? Kareem, you have no idea. Saddiqni. You know, in inheritance, when someone passes away and they leave behind inheritance, the Sharia has already split it up. There are people who already get designated shares. So, for example, the man passes away. The wife gets 1/4 if there are no kids. And if there are kids, she gets 1/8. So the Sharia has already split it up. That's called fard. They have to give them that share. Ta'asib is if there's no one else to inherit and there's money left over, or there's no one to inherit in the first place, then it goes to the males from the father's side. It goes to the males from the father's side. That's called ta'asib. Whatever's left over will be split up amongst them. Okay, like it could go to the uncles, even them, their levels. Could go to the uncles, it could go to the brothers, it could go to the nephews, it could go to the cousins. This is, you'll study it in the chapter of inheritance, inshallah. So, just any side note, some people think that if a person passes away, automatically his brothers inherit. No. The only people that inherit automatically are the parents and the children and the spouse. They're the only people that inherit automatically. Always the parents will inherit if they are alive. The wife or husband will inherit if they are alive. The children will inherit if they are alive. Only if there is left over, that's when you go to the other men that are in the family. So, whether it is fard or ta'asib, they also need to be looked after according to the amount that you need to that you will inherit from them, but that will come with us, inshallah. This is the case when they are poor and one has money to spend on them. What's called a faqir in Islam? Who do we refer to as someone being poor? Yallah. The faqir is someone who cannot fulfill his needs. When you talk about zakat, it's talking about not being able to fulfill their needs for that year. What are their costs for the year? They're going to need approximately $50,000 for that year. And they only have $20,000. They only have $20,000. So this person considered a faqir. He may have enough to feed him the next day, or he may have basic rent. He can pay his rent, but he can't put petrol in his car. How's he going to go to work? Okay, or he's in debt, so he can pay his rent, but he can't pay off his debt. So this person cannot look after his needs for the next year. His needs or the ones that he's looking after, like his children. Faqir, miskeen, no difference except when you talk about zakat. Faqir and miskeen, there's no difference until you talk about zakat. What's the difference? This understanding that a poor person needs to live day by day is very wrong. Very wrong. Don't ever think a person needs... No one, we should not have any person in the Muslim Ummah that lives day by day. We shouldn't have this at all. The faqir is someone, we just said, that doesn't have his needs for the year. I just said that. What's the difference between miskeen and faqir? Faqir has up to half of his needs. Miskeen has up to 99% of his needs. So someone needs $50,000. If they have up to 25,000, but they don't have the other 25,000, they're called a faqir. If someone has up to 24,999, they're called a miskeen. Okay, and that's the difference when it comes to zakat. Okay, they're both allowed to be given zakat. How much do you give them? According to their need. So the one that needs 25,000, how much do you give him? And the one who needs $1, how much do you give him? $1. Okay, that's what's allowed to be given to them so that their needs are covered. Tayyib. When they are poor and one has money to spend on them, again, they are poor, they don't have their needs, they can't fulfill their own needs, and the person who is giving them, they have money to give them. Tayyib. What does it mean that you are able to give them? This is a good question. Good. Your needs are fulfilled, and now you have additional to that. So if you need $50,000 and you are only making $50,000, can you afford to give them? If you can't afford to give them, you're not obliged to give. And this is very important. Why? Because many parents demand of their children, even though their children cannot afford to give. And when that son, he can't give, sometimes the son, think that they are bad, and they need to take from their wife and from their children to give them. That is not you being a bad person, because your first responsibility now is towards your own household. Your first responsibility as a man is towards your household, which is your wife and your children. That's your first responsibility when it comes to the spending, when it comes to the needs. Then what's extra now, yes, from the best of sadaqah is people like your parents. Now, but do I need to take away so that my wife and my children, they're in need in order to give to my parents? Very wrong understanding. No, you do not. No, you do not. So you should not feel bad because your direct responsibility is your wife and children first and foremost. Then if you have on top of that, give to your parents. And parents should not make their children feel bad if they are unable to give. Okay, if they are unable to give. Dave, let's say he's not a faqir. If a father or a mother, they are not fuqara, but they ask from their son, is he obliged to give? The parents are going to hate me. Here, what did I say? The person has to look after his parents if they are poor and he is able. So now you are at home and alhamdulillah you got $50,000 plus more. You got 70,000. Your needs are 50, you got 70,000. And your father calls you up and he's not poor. And he says, Yallah, transfer me $500. Does the person have to give him? A lot of you said yes. Because this is, again, one of the other misconceptions that are there. This is one of the other misconceptions that are there. If he's not in need of the wealth, you're not obliged to spend on him. You're not obliged. Is it a good thing to give him? This is a completely separate matter. What's good and what's fard, we have to separate. So that no one uses that as psychological abuse to anyone else. Sometimes you have a father tell you, أَنْتُ مَالُكَ لِأَبِيكَ. You and your wealth are for your father. Yes, when you are in need, 100%. عَلَى الْعَيْنِ وَالرَّأْسِ. When you are in need and I am able, 100%, you are deserving of that wealth. But if you are not in need, then you cannot demand of me when it comes to that. As great as the status of parents are in Islam, except that everything has boundaries. Everything. Does a boy need his father's permission to get married? Yes or no? No, he doesn't. If a son wanted to go and get married, doesn't need his parents' permission. Is it good to have your parents' permission when you go to get married? Yes, of course. So we're differentiating between what is an obligation and what is good, what is recommended. So that no one can use that as psychological abuse for the other party. It's not right. And no one feels bad if they were in this situation. Now, yes, it is good to assist your father. It's from the best of sadaqah, as the Prophet ﷺ mentions, that number one, it's sadaqah, charity that you're giving. Secondly, it's keeping the ties of kinship. Okay, and we know the great virtues of looking after your parents and your parents being happy with you, etc. But the obligation is not there. Praying sunnah. Is praying sunnah good, yes or no? Yes. Fasting Mondays and Thursdays, good, yes or no? Yes. Giving sadaqah to the masjid, yes or no? Yes. Is it an obligation? No, I can't come and make you feel that you're doing wrong if you don't do it. Same thing when it comes to the parents. It is very wrong to have any type of psychological abuse when it comes to this. Okay? So yes, if a father is in need, you have to give if you are able. If he is not in need, you are not obliged. Is it good? Yes, 100% is good. Yes, 100% it's good. Is it a necessity? No, it's not an obligation upon you. Meaning if a person didn't do it, they are not sinful. Maybe you can call, if your friend does this, call him a grub if you want. But brother, you're a grub. Your father, they look after you your whole life. Your father look after you your whole life. He's asking you for money. And you can easily give it. And you're not going to give it to make his life easier. You're a grub. But is he sinful? Not necessarily. Okay? Not necessarily. Question. If a person wants money to use in that which is wrong. A father's got a gambling addiction, and because he has a gambling addiction, he's always in need of money. Do you need to assist him? Your father calls you up to get you a pack of cigarettes on your way to his house. Your father had a bad day at work and he wants a slab of to his new. Okay, good, alhamdulillah. That which is bad, we don't assist. تعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. Assist one another in goodness and piety, and do not assist one another in sin and transgression. If someone is spending their money on that which is wrong, then we don't assist them in it. Or they are spending the money on stupid things. وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ. Don't give those who are feeble-minded your wealth. And if a person, for example, you were to give them $100, and they're going to go buy chips and chocolate and lollies with it, and they're poor. You say, no, you're not going to pay your rent so you can go buy something silly. No. And this happens a lot, for example, even overseas with your family members. Sometimes they may be in need, but you know if you give them $1,000 cash, they're going to go buy an iPhone. You say, you're in need, you don't have food, you don't have medicine, you haven't paid your rent, you're in debt, and you're going to go buy an iPhone so you can keep up with the who? With the Joneses? Keep up with the? No. I forgot the term that they use, but to keep up with the people, so we can say, mashallah, you have an iPhone. No, this is silliness in spending. We don't give to those people. You can give in an indirect way, or you can pay for their needs directly. طيب وإن كان للفقراء وارثان فأكثر فنفقته عليهم على قدر ميراثهم إلا الابن فإن نفقته على أبيه خاصة. If a poor person has 2 or more heirs, his maintenance is binding on them in proportion to their shares of his inheritance. So if a person, for example, let's say there's a grandfather, and that grandfather had grandchildren, and those grandchildren were going to inherit from their grandfather. Let's say 161616, for example. Those people need to look after the grandfather according to what they would inherit from him. So let's say his needs are $60,000. If a grandfather, for example, his grandchildren can inherit, just as an example, 161616, and his needs for the year are $60,000. Upon each one is to give him how much? Come? Good. $10,000 each. Okay, because they're going to inherit 1/6, and now the obligation to look after him is according to that which they're going to inherit. This is the Hanbali method. This excludes the son, because his father is already responsible for his maintenance. So if a son passes away, the father will inherit from him. But this is not the case when it comes to the father's responsibility in looking after the son, because he has a separate obligation to look after the son completely, because it's an obligation from Allah Azza wa Jal. So the father needs to look after the son. When it says here, the father needs to look after the son, what does it cover? What are we talking about?
The son and his son.
No. Already حكينا. Basic necessities? No. This is what the answer I wanted, so I can say you're wrong. That's why. Be sadistic like that. What's considered the needs and the maintenance of the child? Up to what standard? The urf. Okay? That which is commonly understood. For example, in Australia, the child, he wears decent shoes. The child wears decent shoes, and he wears decent clothing, and he eats meat during the week. Naam. And maybe he's put in sport. Okay? The father can't say, Habibi, I've provided a shed for him to live in. So no, the people don't live in sheds. You have to provide according to the custom of the people. You have to get a decent house. Let's say he says, I've got a 1-bedroom apartment and I've got 10 kids in there. Is that up to the standard of the people? No. You have to get a larger house. He says, okay, he's got 1 pair of thongs. Khalas, he can let him wear those thongs for the entire year. For our American audience or our North American audience, he's got some sandals or flip-flops. Okay? I had a friend come from Canada, and he took a photo in the wudu section because it says, please wear thongs when you walk in. And he was freaking out, what the heck's going on here? So sandals or flip-flops. He can't say, khalas, there's people around the world that don't even have that. I've got in 1 pair, that's enough. We say, no. According to the standard, it's not enough. It's not enough. You need to provide according to the standard of the people to the best of your ability. To the best of your ability. Now, when it comes to this, let's say someone says, I can't afford it. What does he have to do? Very important. What does a person says, I can't afford it? What does he have to do? Can he just say, I can't afford it, that's it, finished? Shut the gates? لا. ما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. خليه بواجب في ترنم. That which the obligation is not fulfilled by, except through it, is also a obligation. So if you have an obligation to fulfill, which is the maintenance of your family, then it's an obligation upon you to take the means to fulfill that obligation. So let's say you have a job and you need $60,000 a year, and your job only provides $50,000 a year. Now you need to do your best to make up that other 10,000. Whether it is for the same job, you look for an increase, or you work more hours, or you look to possibly get a second job. Okay? We are not talking about here people that work 2-3 jobs in order to get as much dunya as possible. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about to fulfill your responsibilities. To fulfill your responsibilities. We mentioned this about the costs of living and the maintenance of the wife regarding the husband. The husband can't afford it, he needs to go out and work, or work maybe more, in order to fulfill the standard of living for the wife. Same thing with the father and his children. Okay, he's responsible. Your job is to go out and to afford it. That could be working a second job, longer hours, and changing jobs, whatever it may be. Unless, of course, they're willing to accept this, is a different story, but in general, this is their right. The next one we don't need to explain, but just so people understand the slavery in Islam is very different to other than Islam. قال ملاك المملوكين الإنفاق عليهم وما يحتاجون إليه من مؤنة وكسوة فإن لم يفعلوا أجبروا على بيعهم إذا طلبوا ذلك. It is binding upon the masters of slaves to spend on them and to provide them with the food and clothing that they need. If they fail to do that, then they will be forced to sell them, meaning forced to sell the slaves, if the slaves want it. If the slave says, I don't want to be with this guy, sell me to someone who will look after me and can afford me, then the slave is freed from that person. And he's sold from that person to someone else. Now, similar to, so you'll be forced to sell them if they demand it. Now, and this is from the rights of slaves. People think slavery, they think of what the whites did in, Abdullah. They think of what the whites did in America to the blacks. And obviously very bad examples of what happened with slavery there, or in other parts of the world where they were worked to the extent that they were dying in the field and not being cared about, or injured, not being tended to, etc. This is not the case at all in Islam. Not the case at all when it comes to Islam. طيب. As we mentioned, and we alluded, if a person has parents and he can assist his parents, assist them. Don't worry about if it's an obligation or not. Thank Allah Azza wa Jalla that you are in a position to assist, and you are not the one that needs to be assisted. Now, for a person to give and to donate in general is such a highly recommended deed in Islam. Let alone when it is someone's relatives, his uncles, his aunties, his cousins, his nieces, his nephews. Assist them in whatever they need if you are able. Now, and you give, and subhanAllah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla for His generosity gives to you back. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jalla uses you to assist. Your giving of others is the reason Allah Azza wa Jalla gives. But when you stop, Allah Azza wa Jalla stops. لا توكي فيوكى عليك. Don't stop giving so that you are not stopped from being given, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. The final chapter, when it comes to the topic of marriage, Bab al-Waleemah, the wedding banquet or wedding feast. He says, رحمه الله, وهي دعوة العرس وهي مستحبة لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعبد الرحمن بن عوف حين أخبره أنه تزوج بارك الله لك أولم ولو بشاه. This is the invitation to a wedding party, and it is recommended because when Abdul Rahman ibn Auf told him that he had gotten married, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, may Allah bless it for you, have a banquet even if it is only with a sheep. Whatever you can afford to feed the people with, then do it, and this is something recommended. والإجابة إليها واجبة لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن لم يجب فقد عصى الله ورسوله. Accepting it is mandatory because the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, and he who does not respond will have disobeyed Allah and His Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. Taban, if a person is not able to go, he's sick, he's got prior commitments, there's something more important than it, this is a different story. You don't have to, but if you are able to accept the invitation, if someone invites you to a waleemah, then you need to accept. You need to accept. Obviously, you don't go if you know there's going to be a haram there. If you know there's going to be mixing and music or alcohol, whatever it may be, you know there's going to be a haram there. Obviously, it's not an obligation to accept. We're talking about here a halal invitation to a halal wedding. وَمَنْ لَمْ يُحِبَّ أَنْ يَطْعَمْ دَعَى وَانْصَرَفْ. He who does not wish to eat should just pray for them and leave. So you still attend, make dua for them and leave. And this is one of the benefits of having a waleemah. When you have a waleemah and you invite the people, one of the benefits of that waleemah is that you are inviting people and they are making dua for you. Barakallahu lakuma, whatever it may be. When they make dua for you, maybe if one of their dua was accepted, your marriage is blessed, or your offspring are blessed, or your wealth is increased, whatever it may be. Naam. So there are many benefits to having a walima. From amongst them, now it's open that you are married, and alhamdulillah, there are no doubts that you're with a guy or a girl, are seeing them doing something dodgy. No, everyone knows that they got married, but also the community is joining in the celebration and making dua for you. Making dua for you, and as we mentioned, if one of their dua was accepted, Allahu Alam, the goodness that may come from it. والنثار والتقاطع مباح مع الكراهة وإن قسم على الحاضرين كان أولى. As for the scattering of traits, it is permissible but disliked. It is better if they are distributed amongst the attendees. This is when someone puts something and for you to take. How do you take it? Sometimes you will find, for example, there will be people who, let's say there's a big plate of rice and the meat, etc. Some people will come in, they will fill for them and their families and the like. This is not recommended, okay? Because it's not part of Islamic etiquette. Take and eat. Take and eat. As for the leftovers, then if you are invited to take for your family members, no problem. Now, or if things are already separated, take what's intended for you. If they bring, for example, plates, then you have your plate of food. As for going and taking plates and plates and plates, this is not from Islamic etiquette. Okay, take what is given for you, and if it is left open, take what is intended for you to take. And if there are leftovers and you're invited to take from it, then take from that. But some people, they implement the Lebanese pronoun, كل شيء بلاش كتر منه. Okay, everything that is free, get as much of it as you can. This is not necessarily Islamic. Okay, it's not necessarily Islamic. Hasanat, yes, take as much hasanat as you want. When it comes to that which the people provide, no. Have etiquette. Have etiquette and take what is intended for you. In the Egyptian as well? Some people that set up, not just for walimas, but let's say there's a lesson on and they do food. Some people really hate it because some people come and they fill up already. Before the food is even given to the people, they'll start filling up containers so they can put on the side for them to take when they leave. This is not right. This is not right. It's not from Islamic etiquette. When someone invites you, be appreciative of their invitation and have what was intended for you. And then if there are leftovers, no issue, you can take from that which is intended for you to take. And through that, inshallah Azza wa Jal, you've implemented the sunnah. Some of the wrong that people have, obviously, how long do we have left, Ya Abdul Rahman?
It's been 7 minutes, so maybe 2 max.
Maybe 2 max, Jazakallah khairan. Some of the wrong, obviously, when it comes to walimas, people forgetting the walima altogether and doing just a general wedding like the non-Muslims do, men and women together, music, dancing between the genders. Many places, unfortunately, they'll have alcohol. This is haram for a person to do, and the haram that they are spending their money on, they'll be asked about Allah Azza wa Jal regarding it. Some people, they're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, something like $100,000 on these haram weddings. You're going to be held accountable for that. Not only your $100,000 that you spent, but that which the people were invited to. They come, they sin, you're responsible for it. Then the people that were encouraged to do haram because of your wedding, etc. You're going to be held accountable for all of that. You very simply do something simple. And subhanAllah, in simplicity there is class and there is barakah. You come, you invite the people. The men are with the men, the women are with the women. I don't know why people love to find rules. Sheikh, what about if just families on... what were we talking about? Now, some people like to find ways to bend the rules. Have only the families together. So the husband and the wife and the children on one table, and next to him, husband, wife, children. Or we have women on this side of the room and men on that side of the room. What is the greatest ibadah we do? The greatest ibadah that we do, what is it? Salah. Salah, you're in ibadah, what did Allah command? Men at the front, women at the back. When it comes to this, do we sit and talk and have parties after together? What are the men meant to do when we finish praying? Stay facing the way that they're facing. The women go, then the men turn around. this matter of intermingling, wallah, it opens up the door for so much fitna. And a lot of the people, they don't understand its danger until they fall into its negative consequences. And then wallahi they say, Shaykh, wallahi the Sharia is correct. Well, what were we preaching the past 500,000 years? The implementation of what? This is what we teach because this is what Allah Azza wa Jal knows. So we should not be intermingling with one another. The men and women shouldn't be there. Let the women beautify themselves and enjoy with the women. From the sunnah of marriage is that they beat the duf. You know the duf, we call it daf in the colloquial language. It's like the circular drum, open from one side, covered from one side. None of the tambourine things. I don't think it's the word, but the clangy things. None of them, just the drum itself. For the women, sing and dance and hear no problem. Beautify yourselves, no problem. As long as your awrah is not showing, enjoy with the women. And the men also, if they want to do it, there's different opinions in scholars. But in general, if the custom is not that it's only for females, then the men can also do it. But do with the men. What's so hard about it? Now go and enjoy and live your life. Live your life. But to do it in the haram or to find ways to bend the rules, this is not allowed. From the sunnah of the waleemah, it's not an obligation, but from the sunnah of the waleemah is that it's actually done after the consummation of the marriage. That's the sunnah. So the Prophet would get married, consummate the marriage, and then after the consummation of the marriage, then do the waleemah. Naam. But if a person done it before, no issue. No issue. And if a person separates between the katb kitab or the nikah, and then they delay the waleemah until the boy and girl move out, all of these no issue. This is something that Sharia has flexibility in. Just the way that you do it, make sure it's halal. Okay? None of this mixing for photos and when they get out, Sheikh, can we have drums and all of this stuff? Keep it for the people in this dunya to do in haram, and for us is patience, goodness, class, barakah, and we enjoy it all in Jannah. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم محمد وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين.